So I think I've made another realization. The Matrix is a retelling of Brave New World. Think about Huxley's message. A utopian society where everyone is happy, living their lives. You have access to things that will make you happy, but you're still a slave. In Brave New World, all pregnancies are forced to be aborted. Within, probably, I believe the consensus among those who've read it is within 48 to 72 hours of detection. People are genetically engineered. And they're engineered into castes. Alpha plus, alpha, beta, gamma, all the way down. You have the gammas and the epsilons, and the book shows it in more of Huxley's day, where it is very racist. The recent production on Peacock removed that bit and simply had it be the epsilons were far less educated. They were basically drones to clean and maintain things, but that was it. The Alpha Plus could do virtually anything they wanted. They could have anyone they wanted at any time. Simply call that person to your office, have your way with them, and make them leave. Regular orgies held, parties held, where movies developed by those in charge of society would be shown. But there were outliers called savages. And of course, they lived far separate from society. And those in the highest castes, Alpha, Alpha Plus, at some point would go to visit this savage reservation to see how the savages lived. Granted, in Brave New World, the production, it was far different. The savages rose up. The New London resident who had been left there 30 odd years ago, pregnant, who had ended up having their son, was killed trying to escape. The son gets back, tries to fit in, tries to take part in everything, and ultimately runs and lives a solitary life. In the book, John and his mother both make it back to New London. His mother then overdoses on the drugs, Soma. John vehemently rejects their technology, their hedonism, their alcohol, their drugs, all of it. He has a self-flagellation habit, meaning that he would whip himself. It is something found in some religious sects. And every time he would run from New London, people would track him down to gawk at him. Naturally, the new production was a bit more woke, a bit more of a social justice warrior type, where they were trying to save John from the savage ways. John was trying to lure them into the savage ways, monogamy and such. But it's not that far off from the Matrix. The Matrix, at the height of human evolution, the late 20th century, early 21st, new technology is developed which ultimately begins running the society. Humans are no longer born, they are engineered or grown. They are then used for the good of society, for the good of those in control of society. In the Peacock production, we ultimately find out that it is an AI running New London, which ends up sending Bernard off to the Savage Lands to basically turned it into another New London to restart the entire thing. That's where it starts to diverge from the Matrix. With the Matrix, you have the outlier, the John character as Neo. And rather than completely reject society, he's born into it, part of it, part of the New London where every aspect of life is controlled, whether you know it or not. But he is taken out and ultimately ends up finding a way to influence that society and bring others out. But I still see it as the same cautionary tale. That tale being that if you surrender your liberty for an easy life, you'll ultimately lose everything. The humans in the Matrix, knowingly or not, had surrendered their liberty. Willingly or not, they had. And at the end of the third movie, Neo meets the architect and is very bluntly told that if he doesn't do as the AI, the machines, end of the second movie, that if he doesn't do as the AI dictates, and that is basically surrender his life, picking a new crop for Zion so they can start having babies, and the anomaly can be recycled, that all of humanity will die. And this is where you get the Christian allegory, the Christ allegory, where you have Neo going up against Smith, basically a good versus evil fight. Neo wins by dying. And as we know, in 2 days on 22 December 21, we get the Matrix Resurrections. And granted, it's not 3 days later, but it is still a very pointed reference to that. Neo is the savior of the human race. The peace brokered at the end of the Matrix Revolutions didn't last. The machines decided they didn't have to abide by the terms and began doing the same thing over and over and over. After all, Neo was plugged into the Matrix when he died, so they could easily absorb that code. You get a resurrection of the one, and it goes on and on and on. But it's an interesting thing to think about. How so many of the things that we watch and read echo each other. And I don't believe the Wachowskis read Brave New World and then read the Bible and said, let's merge these two. There's not enough of one or the other for it to be that. But there are definite corollaries between the two stories, Matrix and Brave New World, and definite corollaries between the Matrix and the Bible. As if the point is to either legitimize both of those or to say these are simply stories that end up being retold throughout human history. I don't really know another way to look at it now, because it's one of those things, for me especially, once I've seen it, I can't unsee it. There's the other example of that, where you have a photograph, a line drawing, and they will tell you it's either a young woman or an old woman. It's either a horse or a rabbit. Once you see one, that's what you'll always see. Now, there are people, and I'm told this is something about neurodivergency, where once you see it one, you then see the other, and you can go between. It's similar to the optical illusion of a moving corridor. It always appears to be moving away from you, but if you try and follow it back with your eyes, it'll move toward you, and you can shift that movement at will. Definitely not the same thing, but it makes you think, what other stories have we read or movies have we watched that have such unique connections to something else that you've read or watched? I don't know. This is just me making a connection in my head and talking it out. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. If I don't see you before then, a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. God bless.